Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back again to another Mindset Mastermind, where we get our daily dose of motivation, inspiration, a whole lot of information to challenge the way we're thinking so we can get an incredible day of perspiration doing the right activity. So to set up today, because I figured we have some folks that didn't make it yesterday because yesterday was a holiday, we are going to be diving back into the preface because we didn't get to cover all 10 presuppositions. And I want to make sure that happens, as well as the introduction. And here's why. These presuppositions, these assumptions, if you will, are really ways to think differently. And I want to kind of lead over the next 2-3 weeks as we're going through this content, that these become your beliefs. You internalize these, that you repeat them, that maybe you journal them, they become affirmations. Because if all you did through the course of this book was load these presuppositions into your subconscious and make them a part of your life would be radically different. So we may have a little repetition from yesterday, and that's okay. I know we've got a lot of other takeaways from all these Roman numerals that we are reading right now in day one. So with that being said, the room is always yours. It's not mine. What do you guys have from the content? Let me look at my attendee list, look for mics that are hot. And boy, there's a bunch of them. So April, we're going to start with you. The floor is yours.
All right. So there's actually two that I wanted to point out. The first one is number 3. Self-centeredness is the root cause of fear. It leads to self-consciousness, concern about what others think of us, over-analysis, and ultimately self-rejection, which I felt like kind of was what ninja selling mentioned. But then this one says that we're rejecting ourselves when we're doing this. So that was very interesting. And then number 5, everyone does the best they can with what they have in their hearts. And then whenever someone, including yourself, acts in a way that is painful or hurtful, it is because they lack resources such as love, joy, and peace, looking through a self-centered lens or fear or pain. So I feel like those are kind of like very similar, that when other people are acting up, they're being very hurtful, maybe very high emotions, it's because they don't have resources. They probably didn't read this book. They probably didn't read Ninja Selling or a lot of the other things that we do.
Yeah, they're probably not plugging in, but here's the intriguing part of this, and I want to come back to your number 5, because that one, there's an interesting second half of it that's not in the content. So I want to kind of share with you my rewrite of this, which came, by the way, from one of my great coaches. It's not mine. It's someone else's. I always love getting the credit to Diana Kokoska when I can. Everyone is doing their best in the moment. That's really what that sentence is saying. Everyone is doing their best that they can in the moment with the resources they have. Here's the second half, though. And all of my suffering is just my judgment of them. Think about it. Anytime you've had a negative emotional state about someone else, you believe they weren't doing their best, and you were in judgment on them, whatever it is. It can be something as simple as, you're irritated with your boyfriend because he left the toilet seat up. Okay, I'm seeing the smiles because I know, right? Because you're in judgment on them, thinking they can do better. And in the moment, they were doing the best they could. Imagine if you gave everybody that grace, that you went through believing in your heart that, in that moment, they were doing the best. It doesn't mean they can't get better. It doesn't mean that over time they can't improve and start learning to put the seat down. It doesn't mean you can't get a spring-loaded seat so it automatically goes down. Okay? They're still doing their best they can. What a change in attitude that can bring. Carrie, I see your mic's up as well.
Oh, so much stuff in here. So it was so much easier to read it than it was to listen to it. So I am going to go through something in the very beginning. So this one, the very first thing I highlighted was I've discovered, which is that every human heart has the potential for deep contentment, joy, and confidence. And training is the most important thing you'll ever do. So when I read that, I decided that I think that would be something excellent to send to my kids, like a text message.
Which is a great one, because you and me and other parents think our kids know we love them. And yet this habit of making sure you're telling them every single freaking day. By the way, and vice versa.
Right. Sometimes like you don't even have to, you don't have to say that, but it's by teaching or sharing something that might help them later. Maybe they're going to think it's stupid, but maybe later they'll be like, oh yeah, that's what they meant. But don't tell your mom that you figured that out. Don't do that.
One of my personal favorites, if you have children in the home, and again, I learned this from others. Every time you say, I love you, give the same physical touch. For me and my boys, it was grabbing them on the shoulder, just put my hand on their shoulder. Son, I love you. Now we're in public, and the thought crosses my mind. All I have to do is make that touch, and the message is received. There is a neural link between the physical, quote, anchor, as we call it in NLP, and the words that were spoken. Again, what a powerful way to begin evolving your life. What else do you guys have? I'm seeing Jeanette's mic hot. What do you got, my dear?
And I even have the right name today. I'm not sure how I did that.
It's amazing.
I wanted to go back again to everyone's doing the best they can with what they have in their hearts, and that all of my suffering is just my judgment of them. There's some people who are doing some really crappy things some days, and that you recognize that in their hearts there's a place. It's spiteful, it's get even, it's whatever it is. And the fact is that word still applies, that everyone is doing their best in that moment. Even the stupid stuff, even the cruel stuff, if they're doing the best that they know in the moment, boy, have we got a lot to give them to help them break through that. And that's an aha for me. It's like giving them back kindness, or in a kind way. You must be having a bad day. I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do to help you? And just probably it'll just shock them, because if they're doing the best they can, they're used to getting this other stuff back. And so that's just a thought. It's a good one.
And I would challenge one thing on that, Jeanette.
Mm-hmm.
Internally, the conversation is, man, they just must be having a bad day. We're obviously not going to tell them that, because that's going to throw them on defense, on their heels. But we absolutely can ask,
Mm-hmm.
man, what can I do to brighten your day?
Mm-hmm. That's definitely.
You have someone come at you with vitriol, with fire, and you respond that way. Man, what a different change to the environment. I had a great one with Josh. Josh had a old-time agent that when she got the final closing statement and saw that she got 1.5% commission, because that's what she negotiated for herself, and Josh got 3.4 on the listing side, because that's what Josh negotiated for himself, she went all sideways. I ultimately had a conversation with her that was a 45-minute conversation of doing just this, knowing she was dealing with the best she had with what she knew, loving on her the whole time. And about 35 minutes in, I was able to ask some powerful questions to change the energy. And by 45 minutes, when the conversation was over, she wanted to talk about her brokerage partnering with us.
Oh my God, that's great.
You never know what you're going to be able to pull off. Miss Celeste, the floor is yours.
I think there's a paragraph in here that seems to really resonate with me, and that is on page 25 in my book. It talks about when we become self-conscious, we want to feel better. So what do we typically do? We compare ourselves to others using the 5 measures of worldly success linked to the affluenza virus.
So do me a favor and pause there, Celeste.
Oh, okay.
Because you are way out of the preface, which I love. You're
Oh,
getting
I'm
ahead.
so sorry.
And no, so we'll probably
Is-
talk about that chapter 2.
Well, it could be
Maybe
XXP, which is
Friday.
25.
Maybe Friday, because we're staying just in the Roman numerals right now, and I really
Okay.
want to anchor this Roman numeral section. And here's the fun part for me. I can always rely on Celeste to being ahead in the content. So when I can't be here, she steps in and leads. It's an awesome just comfort knowing I've got you there. Okay. What else you guys have from our 10 presuppositions or the introduction?
I'll go if you want me to.
Colleen, you're on. And April, I'm coming back to you. And then I see Doug and I saw someone else. So just keep those mics on. All right.
Okay.
Or Colleen first. Go.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, my highlighter is going crazy. This book is already just starting out so amazing. But I just want to keep reading and reading. But really, I've loved. I want to kind of go over 8, 9, and 10. Under those the presuppositions, but really number 9, like there's no failure, only feedback. That one just resonates with me because I've had a lot of experiences over the years with having my own businesses, and maybe things that have held me back on things that I want to do because of my quote unquote failures of the past. And and even before reading this book, I've been reading other things that's having me change my mind about that. And then just going back to that girl you were just talking about, where she failed with getting the 1.5%, but then realizing that she learned something from that, and there's a takeaway from everything. And then number 10, the person with the most power is the most control of their inner world. And I love that. I'm reading another book that talks all about changing your inner world to change your outer world. So anyway, those two like really struck home with me.
So let's dive a little on number 10 with you, because I love the bullet points on that. Mastery of the ego is the greatest challenge, greatest opponent in every competition. We have to keep our ego in line. And part of that ego is the fear of it being bruised. I had a quote from other content that I wanted to put in here on this section today. And it's this from my journaling yesterday. Vulnerability means I'm going to put myself in a position where someone can hurt me. We all talk about being vulnerable, and we need to be more vulnerable. Vulnerability means I'm going to put myself in a position where someone can hurt me. And I want to give you the second subtext on that came to mind yesterday. Picking up the phone and making calls is the poster child of vulnerability. And the reason you don't do it is you're concerned someone on the other end of the line is going to say something that hurts your little ego. So I'm challenging you all again, 2 to 5 o'clock Central. Glenna was there. She showed up and did the work. Celeste is usually there, showing up, do the work. Sarah's been there. In fact, Sarah's offered to lead some days. Get in there for those 3 hours or at least 1 hour of them and have the conversations on mute, and you'll see other people doing the same thing. I was in there yesterday having my conversations. You can be a master of this ego and vulnerability piece by getting into the action. And then number 2 on that, selflessness, complete surrender of the attachments, concerns, and fears of the self is the central component to extraordinary performance and a cornerstone creating beliefs that lead to absolute fullness in life. Complete surrender of these attachments. We all want to be right. We all want to look good. Those core focus of the human being that we've been trained on since elementary school. How different will your life be when you don't care anymore if you look good or if you're right, and instead you stay
Mhm.
focused on the goals of maybe having incredible relationships. April, you were next up.
So in the introduction, he points out the world mindset versus inner excellent mindset, and he goes through multiple different things. But the one that really stood out to me is failure is not an option. That's the world mindset is. The inner excellent mindset is failure is the key component of growth. There's no real failure, only feedback, which I feel like is very important, especially when we're making calls, when we're just having conversations with people. I work a part-time job and we have to make calls to businesses, and my coworkers were getting nervous about that. And I was like, don't get nervous. Like if it's a no, it's a no. If like the worst that can happen is they don't want to build a relationship with us. But the best thing that can happen is we build a relationship and we both benefit from that. That's what can happen. And so like if we fail, we're not going to really fail. We'll learn what we can do better the next time we call, and just grow from it every time.
So on this failure purse, there is no failure, only feedback, which I think also is one of the presuppositions related.
It
to
is number
that.
8, number 9.
Look at how that goes. So I want to give you again mine. We've talked about it before. The only reason I have done better building an organization than anybody on this screen is I have failed a blank load more. So the motto is fail often, fail fast, fail forward. Fail often, fail fast, fail forward. Just commit yourself to being the biggest screw up you can on this stuff. By the way, the same thing works with the building of your real estate business. I went from a brand new agent in a brand new city where I didn't know a soul to 25 listings in 90 days. Because I just didn't care. I had to feed my family, and I got on the phones and I screwed up and I offended people and I had people pissed off, and it was all good because the feedback loop instantly improved my conversations and ultimately got some incredible systems for running a real estate business. Doug, you're up.
The one before that too, the problem is not the problem. The problem is the way you're thinking about it.
Ooh, give us a deep dive on that.
Pardon me?
Give us a deeper dive on that. I love that one.
I'm getting there. I was listening to a video about a waitress who had been waitressing in this restaurant for like 30 years. And one of her customers was an old motorcycle dude that came every morning at, once a week. No, it was once a week. And these kids were making fun of him and poking, just teenagers. And these were the new kids in town that were rich. And this was the ownership of the restaurant had changed. And this new guy, he was after their dads. So they were picking on this old guy. And she said, okay, that's it. Everybody out. Y'all are leaving. You're done. The owner came running out and she told her that you cannot do that. You cannot run off our customers. She said, well, our customers cannot treat other customers poorly. And he said, you're fired after 30 years. And she stood up to him. She said, okay. So she left. What she didn't know was that this motorcycle dude, he had 500 other motorcycle dude guys that had been coming by this restaurant for years, and they all showed up at one time. The motorcycle club bought the restaurant away from this guy and hired the waitress as the manager. Standing up for what you think is right, and the problem is not the problem. The problem that she faced, she stood up for the truth. She stood up for the integrity of her soul, and it changed her whole little community. And it brought together people who did not know about each other. So this right here keeps us focused on what's real. The problem is not the problem. The problem is the way that we're thinking about it. So it's amazing.
It also ties right into that Russism. stop telling me why not and start telling me how to.
Yeah.
When you focus on the problem, you start sharing all the reasons why you can't make something happen. And when you realize the problem's not the problem, and instead it's the way you're thinking about it, and you start getting creative in your thinking, magic happens. By the way, when you focus on the problem being the problem and you lock into that, you actually shut off the creative portion of your brain. So you now go into fight or flight. Those are your only two options. Get creative, get open-minded. Caesar, I see you. And Dustin, I see you as well. So we're going to go in that order, and then I see other mics hot. Caesar, what do you got, brother?
Thanks, Coach. I like I'm not sure what page it is, but when he talks about like you're having money and everything is really not the ultimate goal. What you're really feeling is to have this fullness of life. And then fear is what takes all that away. Fear lives in the painful moments of the past and unknown experiences of the future, taking us out of the unlimited possibilities in the present. So that's, I think, some of what we're talking about. And sometimes we hear it in a group and we talk, oh, well, why? Well, this might happen or this might happen. And it's like, again, going back to your Russism, don't tell me why not, tell me how. And, I think about, I was listening to Elon's autobiography as well. And it's like that same thing. Don't tell me that. Tell me like why. Tell me how you can do it, and then break down the process and then rebuild it. But I love that fear is what takes us away from there. And here's the other thing that I want to tie into. We talked about this as well. That fear, that what you're feeling could also, it's the same feeling as excitement, I guess, if you break it down in the body chemistry. So now before you're making a phone call, so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. It's really, I'm really excited to get on this phone call and get that it's like a mindset shift. And lastly, I want to say, we should expect people when we talk to them to say no. And so like we should have something else to not combat it, but like to know that that's coming and expect that, because I remember your exercise coach where you're like, how you should count those no's as a certain number of dollars. And then your mindset does change. You're like, nice, I got another $90 for that no. So just wanted to add that to the group, especially the fear part.
Awesome. And I want to go back to the beginning of that. And I'm firing something up on YouTube here that I'm going to share with you guys in a moment. And I'll put the link in because it's a homework on what Caesar's saying about anxiety versus excitement. Pretty cool stuff. And I'll give you guys a link. That being said, back to presupposition number 4, which kind of puts a bow on this. We all have the same deep needs and same deep desires. Every human heart desperately wants to be loved and accepted. Most of what we do is done in order to meet this need. Our deepest need is for unconditional love, and our greatest desire is to be fully known and fully loved. I don't care what else you're chasing. I don't care what else is showing up on top at this unconscious level. Love is the greatest motivator. And it's what's inspiring you to do some of the things that you do defensively, the fear responses. My goal is to get you leaning into it for the growth responses and what you're going to become because you're leading with love. Dustin.
Oh, I love that, Russ.
Yeah.
Well,
More
thanks.
importantly, brother, I love you. Appreciate you being here.
So I know some of you guys had a problem if you were doing the audiobook. So just wanted to let you know, in the chat, I grabbed all those 10 presuppositions and threw them into a Word file for you guys. But then I did run it through AI and asked them for the interpretation. So there's a little interpretation down at the end of all of them too. Might be an easier way if you guys wanted to print that off, or at least keep it, on a desktop file or something like that you can get to real easy rather than a book.
Awesome. By the way, the other thing I was going to challenge you guys to, since he brought it in, and I'm going to read them one more time before the end of today, is maybe, just maybe, you should be journaling these every day. How different you'd be if you internalize these bad boys. All right. Jeanette, you are back in the loop, my dear. What else you got?
Oh, a couple of things. On what is it, 28? You are your results. Winning is everything, and winning is developing the deep inner strength that fully experiences the moment. And I just, as Doug is talking also about the problem is not the problem, but the problem was the way you're thinking about it. Being here with Doug right at the moment, you wouldn't necessarily know what level of headache he's got going on. And what you're seeing in action in him is the fortitude that's coming through with him and the attitude that he's living this in a moment right now. We don't quite know what the headaches are from, but choosing this is developing an inner strength in him. And if going through this right at the moment is just for what that inner strength is doing in him, or probably in both of us, then there will be a winning, a gift from this that far surpasses anything that he's going through, because there's a lot of things that are coming forward that are, just as well as the real estate. And just as an encouragement, it's like each of us is going through our stuff right now, whatever that is. And that's what's happening with us as we're choosing to be here, as we're choosing to look for our character and let that be developed.
Oh, I muted you, Jeanette, on this. I apologize. I thought you were done. That being said, I want to loop back on this real quick, and then I want to get to Latrice, because I've seen your mic come in and out, Latrice, and
it was an accident.
Background noise. So real quick, and for those that want, yes, this concept, and it's kind of a third presupposition or an 11th presupposition we might play with. A lot of us think of the physical before the mental, spiritual. Like if we have a physical ailment, we want to treat the ailment. And there's a lot of research out there that shows that the mind actually controls the body, not the other way around. So there's some pretty cool research. Louise Hayes, You Can Heal Yourself, great book, which does some of this mind-body connection. Latrice, you're up.
I ordered it.
That was an accident. I was just trying to turn the camera on. Sorry.
Perfect. Well, at least I was honoring and respecting you. So Caesar, hold that thought of tomorrow, because there's two things I want to make sure we get in the room today as we wrap this up. Number one is going through these 10 presuppositions in order. I'm just going to read the bullets for you guys. I'd love for you to write them down so you have it to journal. Number one, every circumstance and every person you encounter is here to teach you and help you. It's all working for your good. Number two, your life is a reflection of your beliefs. Number three, self-centeredness is the root cause of fear. Number four, we all have the same deep needs and same deep desires. Number five, everyone does the best they can with what they have. Number six, the map is not the territory. Number seven, you are not your mind. Number eight, the problem is not the problem. The problem is the way you're thinking about it. Number nine, there is no failure, only feedback. Number 10, the person with the most control of their inner world has the most power. And then the other thing Jeanette was bringing in the room was these world mindsets versus our winning mindsets. So like the world says winning is everything. And instead, we're going to say, hey, it's about developing inner strength, fully experiencing the moment, and continually growing are far more lasting and empowering. You are the results. Nope, results are inconsistent measures of success and failure. You can perform poorly and still win, just as well as you can perform well and still lose. The opponent is the enemy. The opponent is our partner in the dance. That's a great one, especially in the conversations you're having. Failure is not an option. Failure is a key component to growth. Fierce competitors get mad when they lose. The best competitors develop emotional control and learn from the mistakes to get better. In other words, they're also not gracious, wonderful losers. They're just not upset about it.